Hawks, Hoops, Talk, and Squawk. The Thump and Bump, Hawk and Dawk, Philadelphia 76ers, 1989-90, 1990-91. My Hawkins family, Hersey Hawkins, was Charles Barkley's best teammate, no doubt, during Chuck's prime years of Philly from 1998 through 1992. Chuck during that time was no doubt a top 2 to 3 player, along with Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, who won the league MVPs those years. 89-90 Magic, 90-91 Michael Jordan. And for real, Chuck had a good shot at winning the MVP in 89-90. And had the NBA hosted awards for both respective conferences, Chuck no doubt would have been the East MVP that year. After all, he did finish second in the MVP race to Magic Johnson. Michael Jordan infamously stated that he felt that too, that Chuck deserved the MVP in 89-90, and he wasn't so much upset that he himself didn't win it. He was just upset that Magic won it. Just strong, friendly competition between two of the all-time greats. But anyway, 89-90, the Sixers won the Atlantic Division, 53-29, reached the Eastern Conference Semifinals. Hersey Hawkins, in his sophomore NBA season, stepped his game up, averaged 18.5 points during his sophomore season. And he really should have been an All-Star. I mean, he would get the nod as a replacement that following season, but there's a strong case Hawk should have been an All-Star in 1990 as well. Now, we all know prior to the season, we traded longtime fan favorite Maurice Cheeks, who spent the first 11 years of his career in Philly. Traded Cheeks to the San Antonio Spurs for Johnny Dawkins, who was about 8 years younger, a little more athletic, and along with Hersey will form the infamous Dawkins-Hawk backcourt, Dawkins and Hawkins, one of the top backcourts in franchise history. Cheeks, Tony, Hal Greer, Wally Jones, Allen Iverson, Eric Snow. It's up there. It's definitely one of the top 5 or 6 backcourts in franchise history. You could make a strong case, really, for Henry Bibby and Doug Collins. You could even put that backcourt up there. Shit. Fred Carter and Doug Collins during those mid-70s years, they was a nice backcourt. But anyway, Dawkins Hawk ranks up there with the top backcourts in Sixers history, no doubt. Also, prior to the season, we acquired Rick Mahorn, who had just won the championship that previous spring with the Bad Boy Pistons. But, due to the league expansion, the Pistons had to sacrifice him, and he wound up with Minnesota, who then released him. So we picked him up, and Rick Mahorn formed that great Thump and Bump tandem with Sir Charles Barkley, and add Mike Jaminski in there, who was entering his 3rd year with the franchise. That's one of the better front courts in franchise history too. Barkley, Mahorn, and Jaminski, man, like they went hard. That whole 89-90 season was sensational. Ryan Anderson off the bench. You had the 3 Libra scales: Johnny Dawkins, Hersey Hawkins, and Ryan Anderson. Rounding out the rotation, we had Derek Smith, the late Derek Smith, Scott Brooks, Bob Thornton, Kenny Payne, and Kurt Nymphius, all for 3rd-year head coach Jen Lyman, who prior to that was the assistant coach under Matty Gukas. That's not a championship team, as the Bulls and Pistons would dominate the East those years, yet it's still a memorable team. And it's the lone banner team in between the 1983 championship team and the 2001 Eastern Conference title squad. And it's Sir Charles' best years as the lead sixer. You know, as we know, Chuck came into the league 84, 85. He had Moses, Doc, Andrew, Tony, Mo Cheeks, Bobby Jones. Those were some great teams, but Chuck wasn't the lead dog on that team. He really became the lead guy late in the 85-86 season after season-ending injuries to Andrew, Tony, and Moses Malone. Really, Chuck should have been an all-star in 86, but they gave the nod to Buck Williams. You know, so by 89-90, it was definitely Chuck's team. Like, this was Chuck's, third year as really his fourth year, because 86-87 was Doc's last year, and Chuck took over as a leader officially that year. So this was Chuck's fourth year as the lead sixer. 89-90, 25.2 points, 11.5 rebounds, just under 4 assists, 2 steals, a little more than half a block a game. Just over 39 minutes a night. Chuck appeared and started in 79 games that year. That was Chuck balled out that year and had a strong case of winning MVP, but they gave it to Magic, who led the Lakers to a 63-19 record his first year after Kareem retired. But anyway, 53-29, like I said again, it's not a championship team, but it was definitely a memorable team. You know, and Chuck even stated having his best years playing with this group. He nicknamed Hersey Little Franchise. Hawk backed that up with his performance in the first round victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hersey scored 35 points in the opening game at the Spectrum. Philly wins 111-106. Then Hawk scores a playoff career high 39 points and the Sixers 113-97 Game 5 clincher. Hawk averaged 27.2 points that series and now prepared to face his hometown Chicago Bulls. Man, oh man. The Bulls, for real, you ask me, and a lot of others, the Bulls could have won the championship in 89-90 had Chester Cheetah looking Scottie Pippen not had that migraine choke in Game 7. You know, and I love Scottie Pippen as a player. You know, shout out to Scottie, a fellow Libra scale. But Scottie been talking a lot of nonsense, and he's gotten hooked into this agenda. I'm not even going to go into what the agenda is all about and who it entails or whatever, because I try to stay out of that. But Scottie's been talking real reckless, you know what I mean, about the man he won 6 championships with. But I'll say this, had Scottie not choked in 1990, the Pistons don't repeat. And I'm going to go further in depth into this topic on another video about that whole Bad Boy Pistons run. But Scottie been talking a lot of junk. But the Bulls could have been champions in 89-90. Because, you know, Mike was Mike. Horace Grant and Scottie himself was coming into his own. Scottie made his first of 7 All-Star appearances that series. I remember even against us in that semifinal series, Scottie went off. And I remember I was, you know, I'm Philly through and through, so I was rooting hard for my Sixers, cheering them during that series. But it's like I knew we couldn't beat the Bulls. We had nobody for MJ, and we really had nobody for Pippen either. Pippen played 4 games with 3 starts, averaged just under 21 points, 7 boards, and a little over 3 assists in that series. Mike, man, oh man. Mike averaged 43 on us in that series. 6.6 boards, 7.4 assists, 4 steals, 1.2 blocks. Mike had 49 points And the Sixers' lone win, which was 118 to 112, game 3 at the Spectrum. Mike went for 49. You know, my Hawk fam Hersey scored 27. Barkley went for 34, 20 boards, 8 assists. Bulls rebound in game 4. And game 4 was without Scottie Pippen. Mike goes for 45 points, 11 dimes, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 6 boards. And Stacey King starting in place of Pippen, who was out with a migraine, scored 21. And the Bulls wrapped it up in 5. We wasn't messing with Chicago that year. Now, the following year, we had a better chance, but typical whack dynamics of the Sixers come in. Johnny Dawkins was off the best season of his career. Johnny at the time was entering his 5th season. Throughout those first 4 games, he averaged 15 points a game. But then the whack dynamics kick in. The season-ending knee injury. Brought in Ricky Green to replace him. But prior to that, Johnny D was averaging 15.8 points, 7 assists. He was doing his thing. Hersey was going to have an all-star season. His career year, 22.1 points, just under 4 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 2.2 steals, played and started in 80 games. Hawk, he will be an all-star replacement that year. Definitely the best season of Hawk's career. But I always tell people, if Johnny Dawkins doesn't get hurt that season, the Sixers win. We finished 44 and 38. We would have won at least 7 or 8 more games. It wouldn't have gave us the Atlantic Division title. Boston had it locked up that year, but we would have definitely been better in a playoff race. Even despite that midseason trade where we traded Mike Jaminski to the Charlotte Hornets for Armin Gilliam. You know, in the front line of Barkley, Gilliam, and Mahorn, that was still a pretty tough front court. And I always tell cats, with that front court with Hawk and Dawk in the back court, let's see, Chicago won 61 games that year. We would have finished 3rd in the East. 6 to 7 more wins would give us 50 to 51 wins, which would have been good for 3rd seed. And this would have meant Chicago sweeping Detroit in the semifinals versus the conference finals. But anyway, we would have been the 3rd seed. We would have beat Boston that year with that squad. And we could have got at least 2 wins against the Bulls. In reality, we did win 1 game versus them. Again, game 3, we went at the Spectrum, 99-97. My Hawk fam Hersey, with that game-winning 3-pointer from the corner. I remember being at the Spectrum with my pop and brother going nuts. Had on my little champion Hersey Hawkins jersey with the little starter cap, the little matching starter jacket. Yeah, I had Jordans on, but yeah, I was a little fly 7-year-old showing off at the Spectrum, May 10th, 1991. And even in that game, Mike was Mike. 46 points. Hersey, 29 points, led Philly in scoring that game. But, you know, the Bulls will ultimately, again, win the series in 5. I just feel like 90-91 team with Johnny Dawkins in the lineup, we would have had a little deeper rotation. Still Ryan Anderson off the bench, Ricky Green, Manute Bol, Jason Williams, Andre Turner. We just had a little deeper rotation in 90-91. No, we don't win a championship, but we would at least got into the conference finals. And also breaking that team up prematurely was another mistake. Letting Rick Mahorn walk and then going from those classic jersey threads to those awful ones that Chuck died in his last season. I'm not even going to say they were awful, but compared to the ones they were replacing, nah, and they're definitely amongst the worst threads in franchise history. To me, they're not terrible, but they're far from the best, and they represent one of the worst eras ever of 76ers basketball. You know, you had a prime Charles Barkley, 91, 92, an all-star caliber player in Hersey Hawkins, but you only win 35 damn games and missed the playoffs. Come on. Like, that's tragic. Letting Rick Mahorn go was a mistake. You know, that ultimately led to that disastrous season, which led to Charles Barkley getting traded to the Phoenix Suns, and that officially kickstarted the post-Barkley, pre-Iverson era. And I'm going to do, one of my next videos is going to be all post-Barkley, pre-Iverson 76er team. It's going to be a team consisted of the best 76ers from 1992-93 through 1995-96. And I'm also going to do a all 90s Sixers team in response to my all 80s all decade Sixer team that I did last week. But those thump and bump Hawk and Dawk teams from 90 and 91, those are some of my best years as a Sixers fan. I was 6, 7 years old, but we practically lived at the Spectrum. We used to go to games over in New Jersey when the Nets played in the Meadowlands. We used to drive down to it was then the Capitol Center in Washington when they were still the Washington Bullets. Man, those were some good memories. I remember having the home white and road red Charles Barkley jersey and Hersey Hawkins. Like I said, I had the red and white starter jackets with the matching hat, man. You couldn't tell me nothing. And to me, those Sixer teams were championship caliber. I mean, that's how sensationally I cheered them on. But those are some great teams. And I always say, too, if you combine those two rosters from those two seasons, you have a starting lineup of Johnny Dawkins, Hersey Hawkins, Charles Barkley, Rick Mahorn, Mike Jaminski, basically the 89-90 Atlantic Division Championship starting five. Ron Anderson as the sixth man, Armin Gilliam as the Hawks Vision seventh man. You have Derek Smith, Ricky Green, Manute Bol, Jason Williams, Andre Turner, and Scotty Brooks rounding out your rotation. No doubt Jimmy Lyons, the coach. And in this league, it's a combination of the 89-90 and 90-91 NBA roster. So it will be the champion Bulls and the champion Pistons. I'm not saying the Sixers beat any of those teams, but it's going to be a show. And the Sixers will no doubt win the Atlantic Division. But stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a little hypothetical scenario on that too in a later topic. Might even do a book. A couple of my fans was like, Hawk, we miss your writings. Get back into your writing. So I might do something on the Thump and Bump era. Been wanting to do something like that for a while now. Just never got around to it. But anyway, this was your boy Hawk. Some late night Hawks Hoops Talk and Squawk. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content. Shout out to Sixers Nation 76. My Hawkins fam, Hersey Hawkins. Going after Wing with Hip soon, because I actually want to do something on him. And not only his tenure with the Sixers, but maybe touch on his NBA career as a whole, because he was a key piece to... He was a good piece on those 94 and 95 Hornets team, and was a big part of Seattle's success in 96 going to the finals, and even in 97 and 98 runs. So I'm gonna have to wing with Hersey and do something epic on my Hawkins fan. But anyway, stay tuned for more content. Don't forget to subscribe and be on the lookout for more projects. Hawk out.